Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds here, back again this week. This week, we're talking NFL free agent wide receivers. Some big names, some little names. Where are they going to go? If they do go there, do we like them? Are they buys? Are they sells?
Some of them have big muscles. I described that.
Yeah, you did. And, I don't always agree with the values on these guys, so we'll debate some values a little bit.
Yeah, and guess whose Matt's favorite guy is? We all want to be like Mike.
Big muscles.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson. Here, my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
And Jared Wackerly producing.
Hello.
Yeah, good hello that was. Freak out the
Howdy-ho, neighbor.
Yeah.
Hi.
Way to scare the audience. Well,
We're back.
He'll work on it. We'll give him mic time when we can. Jared's fresh back from the Senior Bowl. He has a lot to say about it, but not on this podcast. He won't.
I got a fresh back.
I'm glad you shaved. And go to our YouTube, Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel.
How's your front?
Manscaped. It's Manscaped.
All right, my review and recap from the Senior Bowl is on the YouTube channel, so go there, check it out, subscribe, like it if you like it, and comment.
If you like it. What if they don't like it?
Malik Willis is QB1. That's what I'll say.
And my guy, who I've been talking about for months,
Trey
randomly,
McBride.
if you've been listening to the podcast or Nerd Show, I've been dropping Trey McBride hints, and he's clearly tight end one.
Tight end one.
And then running back one,
Wasn't at the Senior Bowl.
Wasn't there.
Brees Hall.
But I will say Damian Pierce from Florida looked good. Tyler Beatty from Missouri. Rashad White, Arizona State. They all look solid.
Senior Bowl, not usually a big high running back, because they're usually younger guys. Right?
And they're tough to evaluate there because they're not tackling.
And receiver,
Yeah, Christian Watson. Watch him, North Dakota State, 6'4", runs a 4.4. Dude's good.
all this on the Dynasty Nerds YouTube channel. Check out Jared's recap. He was there. See what he's got to say, and we're a month away. Once this combine hits, it's just all rookie breakdowns. That's it. Like literally the week after the combine, we start our rookie quarterback breakdowns. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends.
What's the date on the combine? Do we have that?
End of this month, right?
It starts. I think the first day is like the 1st of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I know it's always that last week of April
1st.
usually, or a weekend of April.
Ooh, I'll be in Mexico the second week of March.
Not
of
April.
February.
March 1st
Yeah,
to
but
March
it's bumped
7th.
back because the whole league year got pushed back with the extra week.
Gotcha. Right.
Word to your grandma. All right, so today we're talking free agent wide receivers. Will some of these guys be franchised? Maybe. Will they sign elsewhere? Possibly.
Who
Are they
knows?
good?
Some of them.
Are they dynasty buys?
Some of them.
Are they dynasty sells?
Yes.
Well, apparently
Some of them.
most of them. We have a lot to talk about. Free show is this, the Nerd Herd show. We're going to do QBs and tight ends. Sorry to the Nerd Herd for last week. We tried to record it, but you can't talk football without TDs. We had some technical difficulties. So here we are. We're going to jam them in together, have them both go. Why are you looking at me that way?
I like your sense of humor.
Oh, thank you so much. That's what I'm here for. Not the takes, just the bad jokes. And there's a lot of them, which I'm sure some of you know. So diving in, Matt, you're going to kind of give us the players. You have them ranked in order of how they produced last year.
Correct.
And then we're going to talk about them and give you our take from a Dynasty Fantasy Football outlook. Nothing else. Only Dynasty because, listen, Dynasty 365. Next week, what are we talking about? Coaches, right?
On to the coaches.
On to the coaches.
How does that affect your
coordinators, all
Dynasty
that good
players?
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Mike McDaniels, 2 thumbs up.
Can't wait for that.
Hey, Matt, who's the first guy we're talking about? Let me guess. Hold on. District Attorney. DA.
Close.
Got it.
Yep. All right, so the number one guy last year was the wide receiver 2, the number one free agent, rather. Wide receiver 2 last year.
Danny Amendola.
Danny No.
That's the DA, right?
Davante Adams, 29 years old, finished last year, obviously wide receiver 2, like I mentioned. Also wide receiver 2 on a points per game basis. Had played 16 games, 169 targets, 123 catches, 1,553 yards, and 11 touchdowns.
Ooh.
So very good numbers there coming
Pretty good.
out of the top ranked wide receiver this year in the free agent market.
He's every year. He's a top. I mean, Davante Adams is about as good as it gets.
He's the cream of the crop as far as the wide receivers for the past 4 or 5 years, whatever.
And what's nice about him, what's nice about these upper echelon guys, like a guy like Davante Adams that you had to put some stock into, where some people are looking to whether they're reloading, rebuilding this time of year. When a guy's about to turn 29 years old, it usually means like a prime sell standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, I am going to sell this player because he's getting a little bit older. What's nice about it, like these outlier guys, which I would consider Davante Adams an outlier from a talent perspective. I think DeAndre Hopkins is still kind of in that mold too. I think last year the fact that he was banged up, people are going to bump him down a little bit, even though he signed that new long-term contract. So he's there for multiple years. My contract, I think it's a big thing to start. I think that's a starting point with Davante Adams. He's going to resign somewhere and become the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. It's what he wants. It's what he's going to get. Yep. It's what he deserves.
Absolutely.
So with that, you get confirmation of a player that you can put in your lineup no matter what. It doesn't matter his age. For 3 of those years, most likely, are going to be guaranteed in a contract. You're getting 3 more years at the least of Davante Adams. So you're going to that, 31-year-old season right there? So that in itself is kind of like a nice,
right?
Nice little floor platform there is the landscape. And do you guys think Adams is just tied to Rodgers, like wherever he goes, even if he goes, because we're going to be talking QB's next show, like if Rodgers goes to Denver, do they find a way? Well, obviously then Denver would have to trade for Rodgers because he's got 1 year left on his contract. Judy would probably have to be a part of that trade. Do you think Adams is tied to Davante Adams or Rodgers?
I mean, I think ideally for him, he would be. But if he goes somewhere that doesn't have the money and Rodgers goes to a team that already has an established wide receiver core and maybe he doesn't necessarily, there isn't room for him on that team, I think obviously he could be anywhere that has the room. He could reunite with David Carr and go be back with his college quarterback.
Or Derek Carr, either one.
I mean, possibly Derek, David, whatever.
Either Carr, whether he wants to hang out with David on his couch or Derek.
I mean, David would probably fall in as a low end wide or QB1 if he had Davante Adams.
If he would have had Davante
Adams,
he probably would have.
No, even now, I think he still could. So I don't think they're tied, but I think ideally he is, for himself.
I don't think there's any way that he is back in Green Bay next year unless Aaron Rodgers decides to stay. I think that's the only way he's still back in Green Bay. So I think they're kind of almost a package deal with Green Bay. If one is going to be back, I think they're both going to be back.
And it's a hard one to try to figure out with their salary cap situation as well. Green Bay right now is negative $46 million. So they're $46 million over the cap for next year already. So it's going to be very difficult for them to have Rodgers be there and sign
highly paid wide receiver,
the highest paid wide receiver basically in the league.
But yeah, so I think that there is a good chance that he's probably gone. You already mentioned the Raiders as like one of those top landing spots, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's one of these teams where they have some good core pieces in place and they're waiting for that alpha number 1 receiver to help push them over the top. We just talked about McDaniels and the Dolphins. Could that be a potential place where maybe they have some cap room?
Sure. Ton of cap room.
They could potentially look at.
They have the most cap room, $64 million.
Exactly. Right? So I think that's like a sneaky destination that could potentially happen.
The Raiders have cap room.
The Raiders have cap room there definitely, and the connection with Carr.
I agree with Matt. I think they need they need that big time X receiver. So I think him with Derek Carr, I think they'd be up. Like if you can't stay with Rodgers, I could easily see him going with Carr to the Raiders. And I think it's a good fit as well. Like him and Hunter Renfrow would offset each other, and you put Darren Waller up the seam. That'd be fantastic.
Sure.
But you never know in free agency. Like there's always a surprise.
It sounds like he wants to get paid. Like
that's all that matters to him. It doesn't matter where he goes. It's who's giving him the money.
So you're looking at the teams that have a need and have a ton of cap space, and like we mentioned, it's the Dolphins, it's the Jaguars. I mean, the Jets. If he's really just searching for a paycheck, they could have a spot there where they need a
the Jets
number 1.
Could be low key interesting this year because remember they also have 2 picks in the first round, one at 4 and the other I believe at 10.
Yeah, pretty high.
So. And they're going to get Mekhi Becton back too, who missed most of last year. There's
a lot of talk now. They're going to re-sign a guy who played for him last year. There's rumors Tony Pauline's talking that the guy who came in for him. The rumors out of New York are they're really unhappy with Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, he might be shunted to the right
cut
side.
Him. And
they might cut him.
Said he's gained a lot of weight.
He can't keep his weight down, and they really like the guy who can't remember his name that came in and played left tackle. Yeah, Fant. That the rumor right now that come out of the Senior Bowl is
interesting.
There's an offer on the table to extend Fant, and then try to move.
Okay, wow, because he looked great as a rookie, so that's interesting. After
really,
just 2 years,
that's a big conundrum they're saying is because he did look really good, but now he just won't. He can't, like Matt said, he can't keep his weight down. Kind of like not falling in line, one of those kind of players, and you know how that is. Like if you can't take coaching, like you can't play in the NFL.
Nope, that's true. So that could be really interesting. But I'm low key liking what they're building there. They could easily add another offensive lineman at 4 or 10 there. Give a little more protection to Zach Wilson, and with Elijah Moore there and Corey Davis, like that could be a scary good offense all of a sudden.
They get both their big time free agent linebackers back to sign last year at Mosley.
Yep.
Yeah, and they have the receivers. They signed Corey Davis to a good contract last year. They obviously drafted Elijah Moore there, and they still have Denzel Mims, who they refused to trade under contract. Could be a low key tricky spot. Obviously, wherever Davante Adams goes, I think we can all say he's probably bulletproof for his talent wise when it comes to fantasy football points. One, he'll get paid to be number one. They're going to target him a ton. But the big thing here too is like Matt mentioned, what if he goes to the Jaguars? Like how great is that for Trevor Lawrence?
Sure.
If he goes to the Raiders, who Derek Carr's already put up a solid QB2 year. Mm-hmm. Now he gets a guy like Adams to go with Renfro and Waller, a guy who has a ton of familiarity from Fresno State. I'm not going to say the word.
Familiarity.
Yeah. That's the word I was going to say. Thanks for picking me up when I'm down.
Got you, buddy.
Like, what a huge boost. I mean, that would literally potentially, because remember, Davante Adams brings tons of touchdowns with him, too. Like, he's a touchdown scoring machine. Always has been. Always was at Fresno State with Derek Carr, too. He led college football in touchdowns coming out. So, that would be a huge boost that anybody goes to. I would love, like, the moment he signed, if I'm in a Superflex league, Derek Carr's always been an obtainable quarterback. If he signed there, a long-term deal with the Raiders, like, I'm aggressively trying to trade for Derek Carr. Like,
well, it would be a lot harder then. Would you try to aggressively trade for him now in the hopes that would happen? Or because the price is going to go up?
He's a low-key good buy in Superflex as it is for value of quarterbacks. And there's a good chance, with all the stuff that McDaniels is saying, like there's a chance he might get extended as well. So I think he's a good. Yeah. And that's the thing. This is why we're doing these shows. Like there's some things to think about. Some guys are like good sells right now or good buys right now for free agency, but it also affects them around them. So like Derek Carr, to me, they have the cap room. They're ready to compete right away. Sure. I think it makes sense that if he doesn't follow Rodgers, which again, he's chasing the money. Maybe Denver can't offer that because I do think Rodgers goes to Denver.
Denver's another team that has a ton of cap space.
Yeah, 40 million. But Rodgers is going to take a lot of that if he's there as well.
He is.
You could mess with that. You could.
They also have a lot of talent at the position.
They do.
But they would have to trade for Rodgers. They'd have to trade for Rodgers, so they would lose. You guarantee Jerry Jeudy would have to be a part of that deal.
You would think,
right? Because they'd want the young guy with a young contract. He'd have to be a part of that deal. So. Interesting. A lot go around with Davante Adams here. I think the biggest thing here is like obviously Adams isn't affected. Is if you start hearing rumblings, I would target that quarterback. Like obviously Trevor Lawrence ain't coming cheap, but like I think Derek Carr. If there's any rumblings about the Las Vegas Raiders, that's the move. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
What if he goes? Or same thing. If he goes to the Washington Commanders,
that's another
he's
sneaky
saying,
team.
Hey, him and Terry McLaurin, like what a sneaky place. They need a receiver, right? Is their cap situation okay?
Yep. They're at the 30 million. Yep.
And then say, hey, there's rumors that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go to Washington and he's going to command the Commanders. Hey, him and McLaurin and Logan Thomas and Davante Adams, it's a pretty good combo. Antonio Gibson to the moon.
Two other sneaky teams that I could see Adams being a little bit petty potentially. There's two teams in the North that could also use him, in the Bears and Lions. They have the money to do it. If they just back up the Brinks truck, he might be willing to do it. So we'd have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I could see Chicago because they could use
with Justin and
yeah, they can use Justin Fields. Justin Fields, he looked great last year in his opportunities. Lions, I don't know.
And don't forget Bears dark horse. I mean, there was a coach that came from Green Bay as their new offensive coordinator as well.
Right. There
with the Bears. So that could be, they could have some sort of relationship. It was the quarterback coach and the passing game coordinator. So, Adams has some familiarity.
Yep.
Who's next on the list, Matt?
So the next guy on the list, we go down to wide receiver 12 from last year. My man, Mike Williams.
Hey.
Played in 16 games, 129 targets, 76 receptions, 1,146 yards, and 9 touchdowns with his big 6'4" frame, 225 pounds of racked up wide receiver muscle. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, finishes wide receiver 12, like Matt said. It's finally hits pay dirt.
Yep.
He turns 28 in October, so he's going to enter the prime of his career. Overall, relatively wide receiver. He's played in all 15 games the last 4 years. The only season he didn't play in 15 games at least was his rookie year, where he played 10. So that's good about him. This is interesting, right? Again, you're talking about a fifth-year breakout player, a guy who finally steps into his own, becomes a wide receiver one. Is he the kind of player? If he gets paid, does he take? Does he lose a little bit of motivation? Real interested in where he goes.
So am I, and obviously the Chargers have already come out and said that they see him in their plans, and they've got a ton of money.
Oh, I hope so.
$57.5 million. So they're number 2 behind the Dolphins as far as cap space next year. So I do think his most likely scenario is him going back there.
I think it's best case scenario.
I think that's his most likely and his best case for his value scenario, because they finally are using him, I think, more accordingly under this new regime with Joe Lombardi as the offensive coordinator this past year. And let's not forget the hot start he got off to, and then he got injured, and then he started coming back on towards the end of the season. So I do see him as a guy. I know, like, obviously I'm the guy with the pom-poms for Mike Williams.
You're a little biased.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. So I mean, obviously, for me, I think he's a buy, but what do you guys see him as? Because obviously I am, like you said, biased.
It's weird because he's always been a buy. We've been talking about him for 5 years as a buy. Mm-hmm. And it took us 5 years to be right. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think it's still a buy. I'm always concerned about players that don't have consistency with what they've shown on the paper. And granted, Justin Herbert comes in, they use him right, it all comes together. A player we always believed in, but players that don't have that resume, for example, like there's always a question in the back of my head because I've seen it too many times. Definitely comes to NFL free agency when they switch teams. I wouldn't be concerned if we say the Chargers are going to get paid, not at all. But sometimes when you see those players, they get paid mostly off that one big year because again, the real good players don't leave their teams for the most part. They don't leave their teams. They get paid, and they're just never that guy ever again.
But if he was to go to like the Jets, I'd be like, sky is falling.
For sure.
Well, and it's going to be interesting too because there's several good like top end guys. We already talked about Adams. We're going to be talking about a couple other like marquee names, and Mike Williams, other than this year, has kind of been in a tier or two below those guys. So how much do teams value this year's production versus other years? But then you also have to factor in it's a fairly strong wide receiver class once again. So how much are you going to be willing to pay for a receiver that is about to be, what is he going to be 27 for most of the season? It looks like, or do you go after Drake London? Do you go after, some of the other players that could fit in a similar mold?
So that was something we never got around to with Davante Adams. What do you guys see Davante Adams value at these late stage of his career? Is he still at
who? Well, DeAndre Hopkins is the highest paid receiver, right?
With his new deal, he might have.
He's making over $25 million a year.
I want to say he is. I can look.
I'm just saying, from a fantasy standpoint, from a dynasty standpoint, you're going to pay how many first round draft picks for Davante Adams, not how much he's worth for a contract.
If I'm a contender, I'm paying 2 firsts.
Yeah, 2 firsts. Right.
Yeah.
So Mike Williams, I think, in my opinion, he's a 1 first guy, right?
Yeah, but you're talking drastically different players.
Average per year, DeAndre Hopkins is the highest paid.
How much?
27.2.
Yeah, so DeAndre Hopkins, and Davante's getting about $30 million a year.
Which will be really interesting if Kyler Murray doesn't come back.
So that was a weird thing that happened this week, huh?
Yeah.
NFL man need that drama. I don't know. I paid a first for Mike Williams last year before he even broke out.
So did I. Yeah.
I paid a first for him happily. It was a 23 first too. I didn't even care. And now obviously I pay now because he was a wide receiver 1. But I have no problem paying a first. And I think with the stigma of that 23 class, I think that 23 first, as soon as you say, hey, I'll give you a 23 first, like doesn't even matter where it goes.
Yeah.
It makes the needle move. I got Alvin Kamara for a 23 first today.
Oh, wow.
A late 23 first.
Probably because of the news.
Because of the news. And the guy said, he's like, I probably pulled the trigger too quick. It's probably not the best trade I made. He's like, but I'm legit worried. And I wrote back.
Wants to not be stuck on the back.
And I was like, dude, I have no worry about Alvin Kamara punching some dude in the face. Great. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying about him not playing NFL anymore. Like he'll be fine. There's a ton of players in the NFL that have done much worse.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, a 23 first moved the needle. You know what I mean? In a Superflex league. So to me, if you offer a 23 first for Mike Williams, I think that gets it done 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with, am I dumb that I don't know that I would accept that?
What?
I almost think I would rather have the 23 first.
I'll take Kamara. He's 23.
No,
he's
not
26.
Kamara. Mike Williams I'm talking about.
Oh, you're the 23 first? No, I don't think you're dumb. I think it's fair.
Because I'm struggling with
anytime
this
you talk, here's the deal. I think anytime you talk fair value, it's going to be 50-50 trade.
Sure.
It's like when you put up a trade on Twitter. Right. You hope that the response is 50-50. Because then you know it's a pretty even trade.
Yeah.
So I think if me and Matt say, yeah, I want 23 first, and you're like, nah, I don't know.
Because I'm torn on it because I see the upside in the ceiling, but I also know that there's crazy upside in ceiling in this class too. Would I rather just have like the younger upside in ceiling than the older upside in ceiling? I think that's kind of where
you're only trading for, here's the thing though, Garrett. You're only trading for Mike Williams. Any of these players here are obviously past age limit besides Chris Godwin. He's 28 years old. You're only trading for him if you're a contender.
I got some recent trades here in the trade browser.
Yeah, those in a second. Give me one more second though.
All right, one.
So if you're trading for him, you know what I mean? You're a contender.
Right.
And you're talking about a first, not even this year, next year.
Right.
I'll worry about that later. If I need a receiver help and I'm getting a wide receiver 1 this year, and say even and I'm bringing him to be my wide receiver 3, for example, I'm already a contender. So my team's already legit.
Sure.
If I'm bringing Mike Williams to be my wide receiver 3, which I think is a perfect role for him, I've always thought that.
Me too.
As your wide receiver 3 on your team as a contender,
he should never. As much as I love him, he should never be your centerpiece or probably your number 2. If you're serious about contending, he's probably your third guy.
Yeah. So if you can get him for a late first, that's 2 years down the road, which I still have time to recoup. If I even want to try and recoup, I'm trying to win. I think he's a great value. So again, I'm not looking I understand your point. I would take a younger guy, but if I'm a contender, I'm worried about the 2022 season.
I do worry about Josh Palmer a little bit too. He looked pretty good.
I looked at Josh Palmer this week. Guess how many yards he got?
How many?
353.
It was ridiculous.
Just like college.
400-yard Josh Palmer. You just mark it down next year. It's going to be like 405 or something stupid. Because he'll slightly get better, and that'll be it.
What's some trades for Mike Williams? I'm interested in this.
So we have a couple that are very similar. We got Mike Williams for a 2023 first and a 2023 second.
Okay. Oh.
So, and then Mike Williams for a 2022 first and a 2022 second.
Okay.
And then we have a juicy one here. Mike Williams for two 2022 firsts for Justin Jefferson.
Mike Williams and 2020 and two firsts for Justin Jefferson.
Man, I hope one of those 22 firsts is 1-1.
Yeah. Matt, that's got to be a tough call for you. It's like the two greatest things.
It's pulling my heart in 2 different directions. I can't make that call.
Dude, you have to
choosing your wife or your child. Good luck.
For you to get Jamar, if I own now, look, granted, I'm in 19 Dynasty leagues. I have neither one of these players. It's amazing, and I've tried to get both, and everybody's telling me to kick rocks, which I understand. For you to trade Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, if I had them, for you to get them away from me, you would have to pay such a gross overpay. People are like, have you ever played Dynasty before? They're just not you're not giving me draft picks back for those players. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not,
with them being so young.
And Mike Williams is a nice add in with those 2 firsts, but it better be Mike Williams 2 firsts with both of them being top 6. And you better be talking Amon-Ra St. Brown. I want more young guys in there too. And then even then, I'm like, what am I doing here? I mean, you just can't put a price tag on a
22-year-old superstar.
A 22-year-old, 21-year-old guy that are going to be top 5 fantasy receivers for the next 8 to 10 years. You just can't. That is worth its weight in Dynasty gold. You know what I mean? In their waistline. Depends what you eat. If you eat a lot of donuts, that's a lot of value. So, to me, that trade for Mike Williams is kick rocks. I like Mike Williams, but
you do. Yep.
Running back all day. I'll make those trades all day. I sold DeAndre Swift yesterday or a couple days ago. Yeah, 3 firsts.
I would have done that too.
Yeah, he wasn't happy about it when he realize it 6 hours later. He asked me to reverse it, but stuff happens.
There's some other things in that deal. Don't make it sound like it was just that. And I wasn't the person.
No.
I'm not the person.
Superflex league. I got 1-5, 223 first. One of them might be in my back. So pretty good.
Nice.
So Mike Williams, we 2 buys, 1. I'd rather have the 23 first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Cool. All right. So the next guy down the list, wide receiver 15 from last year, Chris Godwin, 25 years old. He was actually wide receiver 8 on a points per game basis, but only played in 14 games, 127 targets, 98 receptions, 1,103 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, which is a career high, too, for him. His previous career high was 86 receptions, so he comes into the year with 98 and obviously only played 15 weeks. And if you look at him, weeks 1 through 15, which is what he played, he was wide receiver 6 overall in PPR leagues. In 2020, he only played 2 games prior to week 6. He was kind of all banged up. Weeks 6 through 17 with the bye and missing week 8, he was wide receiver 19.
And with like a broken hand for part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he was still wide receiver 19. Yeah. In 2019, he missed the last 2 games of the year. So weeks 1 through 15, he was wide receiver 2. Still finished the year as wide receiver 2 on the year. That was the Michael Thomas year. We had tons of receptions. Yep. 2018, which was his sophomore season, he was wide receiver 27. Only 26 years old, turns 27 here this month. So he'll be 27 years old.
No, he turns 26.
He's 25.
I'm sorry. I read his birthday's February 27th.
You're good.
So he's 25, turns 26 February 27th.
Yeah, he's a young pup.
I have it in my notes. It's real.
It is really big for your
really
old
big.
eyes.
It's all capital letters. I got old eyes. To me, I can make an argument that this is the number 1 receiver we're talking about for a buy for a dynasty team. Obviously, Davante Adams is great. Sure. But for 5 more years,
I agree. Yep.
Chris Godwin could be the number 1 guy we're talking about in free agency. Like he's gonna get paid. I know he tore his ACL. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Maybe he's not even ready for the 2022 season. He's gonna get paid. He'll be the number 1 player on that team. I have the Patriots written down as a favorite place of mine. I know they went hard after Odell Beckham. Maybe Odell Beckham goes there. To me, he has shown me enough on tape, year in and year out. He's a bona fide number 1 receiver. Mm-hmm. A guy that was getting it done with Mike Evans there the whole entire time. Mike Evans was getting it done the whole time. Put up 1,000-yard receivers. Me and my son were talking the other day. We're like, who are first ballot Hall of Famers right now playing the NFL? So me and my 9-year-old son were kind of going back and forth with players we thought. Mm-hmm. At the end, I was like, who's a sneaky guy that's probably good, that if he keeps going at this pace will be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I was like, Mike Evans. I was like, he's not appreciated as much in Dynasty. I was like, but in NFL wise, like he's doing things that's never been done before. Like he's been up 1,000-yard years every single year.
The hardest part about it is the log jam at wide receiver to get into the Hall. Like even T.O. wasn't first ballot.
And I told him that. And I was like, listen, for a wide receiver to get in, it's hard. I was like, so he's probably not. That's why he probably won't be first ballot.
Right.
But
I think he'll get in.
I was like, if he keeps this pace, like he's going to finish with crazy stat lines. So
he'll have to do it for a couple more years too.
Do you think Chris Godwin's bulletproof, Garrett? Like, do you think he's somebody that, like, wherever he goes, you're going to be pleasantly surprised? Do you think the ACL tear holds value? Where are you at with Chris Godwin right now? Like, and what do you personally think the price tag is?
Yeah, I'm still on board with Chris Godwin. I'm interested to see where he lands because he is another one that I could see chasing a big paycheck. And there's a lot of teams that have the ability to do it that could use someone like him. One of the first ones that jump out to me are the Colts. I think he would be a great fit there. There was rumor that there was some interest there last year before he was franchise tagged. So that's one that I could absolutely see. We mentioned the Jets as a possibility. The Commanders could potentially be on that list. Jaguars could easily be on that list. Mike, we mentioned Miami earlier too. That's another one that. So I could see him going to one of these scenarios, but a lot of those aren't necessarily sexy fantasy locations. Potentially, but I still think that he's going to get enough of a target share wherever he goes that even though I'm not necessarily confident he would still be a wide receiver 1, I feel pretty confident that he would still be a wide receiver 2. And if I have a guy that I think could be a top 20 guy for the next 4 seasons, I feel pretty good paying, we talked about 2 first. That's probably about what I would want to pay for Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and I think too, when people, they throw that 2 first kind of thing out the window, like, oh, that's so much. Well, the way I look at it is 1 first automatically just goes to replace the player.
Replace the guy, yep.
So like that's why I hate the 1 first for like a good like same thing like the Kamara trade. Like, oh, I don't know about the late 23 first. I'm like, well, I'll just I can't get a good running back there at 26 for the late first. I'll just gamble. Like I'd gamble on that. I'd gamble on a running back late in the first anytime. We all do.
Right.
I mean, any running back gets drafted in the second round that was a mid-second round pick before draft, and a guy or they trade up for him, a guy like Trey Sermon. All of a sudden, people are like popping bottles. Like I gotta draft him. Like, oh, why don't you just draft Elijah Mitchell? So to me, I think Chris Godwin is easily. I personally think he's worth more than 2 firsts.
He might be, and I don't think I could get to 3. I think that would be an overpay.
It'd be a player,
but yeah, a player or maybe like a second round pick thrown in. Like I could be talked into something like that.
Yeah, like 2 firsts, 2 seconds, like one of those kind of. Like
that would probably be like my tippy top max
for sure.
Yeah.
But I would be willing to pay. If I'm a contender again, because if I'm rebuilding, I need all that draft capital. One player's not making a difference.
Is there a scenario where this is the trickiest part of this whole equation? Because we have to remember before he was with Jameis Winston, and even though Winston wasn't a great actual quarterback, he was a great fantasy quarterback. Oh, yeah. And then he went to one of the greatest quarterbacks, the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. We've only ever seen him with fantasy goodness. Is there a situation that he could go to that is going to be better or even equivalent to what he's had recently? And I think it's unlikely that there's a spot because most of those teams where you would be like, oh yeah, it'd be awesome there. All of them have 10 million or less in cap room available for next year. So I don't see a situation where it gets equal or better. That's the only tricky part of this.
Well, I think a player of his stature when he goes to certain situations is one of he goes to a place that's not as good, maybe say the Bears, who literally only have like Darnell Mooney under contract. Right. The Lions, who pretty much just have Amon-Ra St. Brown under contract. Like he's going to be fun of targets.
Both of those would be quarterback downgrades, though, to Garrett's point.
Right.
Well, I think Detroit would be. If they keep Goff. Obviously, everything's a downgrade compared to
Brady and Winston. I think that's the tricky part is like, unless you're getting Mahomes, Rodgers, one of those, even Justin Herbert, that's the only one that has the cap room, them and the Bengals, but neither one of those need receivers.
Listen, man, targets equal fantasy points, receptions equal fantasy points.
Sure.
You don't have to be a good quarterback to get that. I mean, again, a prime example is what over the last half of the season, what was Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Oh yeah, he's
a top 3 fantasy receiver.
He was amazing.
Right? So he's a top 3 fantasy receiver with arguably a top 5, bottom 5 worst quarterback in the league. Why? Because Amon-Ra St. Brown was heavily targeted in the number 1 looking at offense. Where Chris Godwin will go,
sure.
He's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. So
yes,
if Amon was a top 3 fantasy receiver there, well, Chris Godwin sure as heck could be a top 3 fantasy receiver there. So to me, I don't worry about it. I would offset that with he had so much around him. He had Lenny, Lombardi Lenny. He had Mike Evans. So
sure.
if he goes to a situation with the worst quarterback, he's most likely getting some talent away from him as well. So it opens up more for him as well. So stuff like that doesn't worry me. You know what I mean? He would make that quarterback better, or he made that player better because some players too are just bad. Like, yeah, Jared Goff's pretty bad. But at the same time, what's fair to Jared Goff when he had nobody to throw the football to last year?
And he actually performed decently well over the second half of the season.
Wasn't horrendous, but in the eyes of the NFL, he was terrible. Same thing. Derek Carr, we were talking about him earlier getting a huge boost. He was a pretty solid fantasy quarterback last year. If he gets Adams, we're all going from 6 to midnight. You know what I mean? So it's like we need these players to make everybody better. If Chris Godwin goes to the Jaguars, they have like $60 million in cap. If Davante goes there, if anybody goes there, Trevor Lawrence now, who already is a dynasty darling, gets a huge bump just because he has somebody more to catch. That's guaranteed to catch the football and then do something with it as well. They're not going to be Austin Hooper, catch the ball, fall over, hit that thing around your neck that says you got to call 911 and
life alert.
Yeah, life alert. Help! I'm Austin Hooper. I broke my hipper. So, no bueno. So, I think Chris Godwin, to me, is worth easily more than 2 firsts, Matt. I mean, what do you think here? I mean, would you pay 2 firsts, 2 seconds for Godwin if you're a contender?
Like, my initial thought was obviously it's at least 2 firsts. So, it's definitely more. It's at least that. I think I would. The 2 seconds is a bit much.
Okay, reverse it. But you own Godwin. I own Godwin in a couple leagues.
Sure.
If anybody says, hey, I'll give you 2 firsts for Chris Godwin, I'm like, bruh, I need some more.
Yeah.
Like, I need...
No, that's a good point.
And they're like, hey, well, I'll give you 2 seconds too. Honestly, even then, I'm like, oh, those are a little later seconds. Like, keep the seconds. Give me this player. And even then, I'm like, some people... I think a problem in Dynasty, personally, I think too many people fall in love with that draft capital scenario. And they're like, hey, I'll give you 2 firsts. Like, it's 2 firsts. My brain works different. I'm immediately going, well, with one of those firsts, I got to replace Chris Godwin. Sure. That's not not going to happen. So now I have this extra first, like, we're going to fill this hole. To me, I need more. For a player of Godwin who's going to turn 26 this month, like, I need more. That's Dynasty gold. And again, I'm not a San Francisco 49er. I'm not there panning all day to find this gold for nothing. You know what I mean?
Dude.
So if you were in rebuild mode and Chris Godwin was your best player, and the best offer you could get was 2 firsts and 2 seconds, you'd be like, I need it.
If I'm in rebuild mode, which again, I think he's young enough you could kind of actually use him as a cornerstone. But if I'm in rebuild mode and I want to, now all of a sudden I have 3 firsts because I'm getting 2 firsts for that scenario. I guess in most cases you would. If that's the best offer I can get. We've talked about this on the podcast. Sure. Like when you're in rebuild mode, you put an offer in there, and then if the best you can get, and you really want on the draft capital, that's the best you can get.
Sure.
That's the best you can get.
Yeah.
But
sometimes you just have to make those kind of moves, I guess is my point. And you made it sound like you never would. Like the 2 seconds wasn't enough to do anything.
So you said the most I would.
But you just sold
that's the least I would take.
DeAndre Swift here for 3 firsts, and you were out the door. You know, and it was Swift. It was
Sony Michel,
and Irv Smith.
But the guy started off with 2 firsts and 2 seconds, and I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not selling DeAndre Swift for 2 seconds because literally one of those picks, I got to take a running back, and now I just have another first. And now I'm giving up a top 3 dynasty running back. I was like, no. I was like, and I told the guy back, I was like, listen, for a guy, because he didn't want to pay the 3 first. I was like, these are the facts when you play dynasty fantasy football. When you want a player of that stature, and definitely Swift, who's only done it for a year. You know, it's easier for me. I'll run him extra for sale. But if you want a guy of that stature who's going first round dynasty startup, top 16, I was like, the facts are the facts. You don't pay fair value. You overpay. Because I'm taking all the risk with the draft picks. Like, draft picks do not guarantee you're getting a good player back.
Nope. And we have been very spoiled these past couple of years, too.
It might get lean here, though.
It could. It could. This could be a lean year. We'll have to see how it plays. And there's still players I like. There's still, I think, some value to be had. But the past 2-3 seasons have been bountiful. But let's not forget the 2 or 3 years before that, which were you had like 2-3 guys from a class that you ended up liking, and then that was about it. So it can be hit or miss at times.
That's why for Godwin, like, I gotta keep the 2 seconds. I think good value for Godwin is 2 first, and like, I'm not even saying Amon-Ra St. Brown because that's like, to me, that's a little bit of an overpay. But I want a player back that I could believe, a guy that has some upside.
I'm looking at the trade browser tool for Chris Godwin right now, and it seems like he's cheap just by looking at what's been happening.
Because the ACL injury?
I was going to say the ACL might be factoring in on that.
Like
and where he could end up.
Chris Godwin and Dawson Knox for James Conner and George Kittle.
Wonder if it's a premium or not.
Yeah.
Okay. These are all super flex leagues. Okay. Chris Godwin for Dawson Knox, a 2023 second, and Travis Etienne.
Okay.
Take Godwin.
Chris Godwin and Madison for T. Higgins, a second in 2024 and a third in 2023.
Okay.
I like T. Higgins a lot, but yeah,
Marquise
I would
Brown,
still take Godwin there. Yeah.
A second in 2024 and a first this year for Chris Godwin and a first this year. Those are the first 4 trades, and it just keeps going on with, in my opinion, just like the value's leaning way on Chris Godwin's.
So maybe just give him 2 first straight up.
It's looking like a good buy low.
If you're a contender, yeah. So that makes him seem like a buy low. That's why and that's when you join the Nerd Herd, this is one of the tools you get is a trade finder. Another great perk because when you're going to make a trade, before you go make that trade, you go see real trades that have been made in Sleeper, in My Fantasy League, and FFPC. All these are trade places we pull trades from to see like, oh, I'm going to offer 2 first. Well, wow, nobody else. All these trades, he hasn't gone for 2 first. Maybe I could offer first, a third, and Marquise Brown, and it gets it done. Because sometimes you just never know. When I made that trade today for Alvin Kamara, and the guy's like, listen, man, I'm selling Kamara. Throw your offers in. I don't know if you get. I was like, I'll throw this late 23 first in. I'm like, I wouldn't trade Kamara for a first. Maybe it probably won't get it done. And then I woke up today, and the trade was accepted. I was like, oh, bless my soul.
Bless my soul, indeed.
You never know. Before going to the next guy, sometimes we make these trades, you're making bets. Like you're taking gambles here, and you got like, hey, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. And sometimes they pan out, and sometimes you're like.
Love biscuits.
I do too, with some honey on them.
A great segue.
Dude, my mouth just started watering. Thank you.
Oh, man. If you have that kind of money, another place that you can go look is PredictionStrike.com. You can go buy stocks of players just like the stock markets. Buy, sell, trade, whatever you want to do there, you can do it. They have a fantastic app for iOS. And I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's just because of what I'm interested in and whatnot, but I'm starting to see Prediction Strike ads pop up all over the place.
Uh-oh.
Like this is a company that I think is on the upswing here. So if you want to get in before all your friends, before they know about all of this stuff, you can get in on PredictionStrike.com. Use promo code Dynasty to receive a free share with your first deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code Dynasty. With your first deposit of $20 or more, you get that free player share.
And listen, we've been promoting them for a while now.
A long time, yep.
And what we've learned here, the best time for Prediction Strike to buy is the off season.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The prices don't move in the off season. So find the value.
Find
everybody we talk about all year, find that. We'll find it for you.
Find a couple players that had like bad last couple games.
Yeah.
I bet
IR.
Chris Godwin might be a good one, right?
Maybe.
J.K. Dobbins.
Oh,
I just drafted him in a startup.
Prediction
I was
Strike.
excited.
All right. More wide receivers. Feed them to me.
All right. So the next guy on the list was wide receiver 26 last year. He is 25 years old. Christian Kirk is the name. He played in all 17 games, 103 targets, 77 receptions, 982 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Now, after Christian Kirk, I think there's two names that probably will not be next in order on the list, but I want to make sure that we get them because I think they're bigger names than who will be left.
Okay.
Well, it's not hard to be a bigger name than Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk holds a lot of weight. You know what I mean? Like I said, wide receiver 26 last year, averaged 12.2 points per game. Ended the year really well. When DeAndre Hopkins went out, so DeAndre Hopkins went out week 14. Weeks 15 through 18, Kirk was wide receiver 14 overall. Just one that, to me, I view Kirk as just a complimentary player.
Yep.
A very solid NFL player. Never going to be consistent enough. Never going to be the number one guy or move the needle enough to be on my dynasty team. To me, he's not a championship caliber player. Like last year, the last couple of weeks, he could have been your wide receiver 3 and you would have won a championship. But to me, I don't look at that as a stable situation. Like to me, he's a sell. If he goes somewhere like we mentioned earlier, like the Bears, right, that need a receiver. If he goes to one of these wide receiver teams, even like the Lions, if he's a player that goes to one of these teams, I can see him kind of being slightly overpaid. Mm-hmm. When you see that contract, you're like, whoa, Kirk's getting $16 million a year. Like you see it all the time. You're like suckers, and guess what?
Right,
we're always right. He just seems like one of those players to me that he's more of a wide receiver 3 than a wide receiver 2.
Real quick segue. We'll go right back to this. But when you said suckers like that, it reminded me, somebody tweeted at Matt Flynn the other day. They're like, hey, do you remember when the Seattle Seahawks paid you all that money? And he quote tweeted and he was like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't see that. He's like, yeah, that was.
I was dying. I could see that being Christian Kirk.
That could be Christian Kirk. Happens all the time.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That was a great tweet. I saw it too.
I got those fools.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So he's a slot receiver. Again, he had career highs last year too. Coming out, the same thing we were kind of worried about Mike Williams. These kind of players worry me. Career high with the 77 receptions and 984 yards. I could see him fall into that same role and kind of fall into that. Maybe if the injuries fall out right, but this depth of talent at wide receiver, those kind of numbers in 18-game season to me is more of like a mid-range to high-end wide receiver 3. Which again, we preach all the time, like wide receiver 3s hold value. You can win championships with those players if the rest of your team is strong. But we just mentioned before, like Mike Williams is the ideal wide receiver 3 for a championship caliber team. I would hold on. If I own Kirk right now, I would be looking, as soon as he signs for that contract, I would just be looking to get out. Because to me, maybe his ceiling, he finishes as a mid-range wide receiver 2. Maybe his ultimate ceiling is how he finished the year as wide receiver 14. I think there's a possible
Kirk was not
end of the season.
end of the season.
Oh, I was like, whoa.
Just the chunk
of the end, not end of like
when Hopkins was officially out.
Got it.
So from weeks 15 through 18 is wide receiver 14, where he's pretty much the main guy.
Sure.
Because even before that, Hopkins had 2 receptions. From that point, the 2 previous games, he was wide receiver 26, right around there. I think he got a slight uptick as wide receiver 25, which is crazy. Even with Hopkins limited for a while, he was limited. He was only catching 2 balls. Kirk was still only wide receiver 25. He finished the year as 26, but he only saw a slight upkick there. Where between those weeks, even if I tried to break it down, and I narrow it down,
when Hopkins was still in the game, but he was injured. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, he was still only wide receiver 25. So it took Hopkins to be completely out and eliminated from the process to be wide receiver 14. I think if he signs a good long-term contract, there might be some kind of window you could finagle a first from somebody for Kirk. I think that window might open up slightly, and if it does, I'm just jumping through it completely. I would either a first when he signs there for him, or a player that I like, a young guy that I'm excited about. He signs a big contract, can I sign him for Elijah Moore? You know what I mean? Can I?
If you can.
I mean, I would do that.
Run to the bank.
I mean, I'd do that 100%.
Can I give him in a second for You know what I mean? Something along those lines is what I'd be entertaining, because that's what happens for some people that don't listen to Dynasty podcasts or put the time in. Every league has those players in there. They don't put as much time in it when they do the rookie draft. They're literally drafting off the NFL draft board, right? Whatever that player went in order in the NFL draft is what they're drafting. There's all those players in the leagues.
Yep.
It's easy sometimes. You see on Twitter, oh, what a bad trade. Some of us are consumed with Dynasty Fantasy Football because we love the game so much. So we put so much time into it. We're scouting our own rookies. We're listening to podcasts. So it's easy for us to go, oh, what a bad trade. But for a lot of players out there, I would say at least a minimum with a third of the people that play Dynasty. So tens of thousands of people. When a player like Kirk goes out and signs a contract for $15, $16 million a year, that's going to move the needle for some players. And then especially if he signs for a player like the Bears, and say Joe Blow in your league is a huge Bears fan, right? Things like that play and they hold weight.
You know
what I mean? But Matt, that stuff holds weight in Dynasty leagues. You and I have been playing Dynasty for almost going close.
Let's not
too long.
Tell people how old we are.
Almost legal to drink. So to me, that holds weight. So when it seems when we say it's crazy for you to trade Christian Kirk for Elijah Moore, when Elijah Moore really didn't do much early on, he looked pretty good, but he didn't do much. I think there's windows out there, not for the savvy player. None of us are doing it.
Sure.
But I think there might be a window out there in some leagues that you might, if he signs a contract that we're talking about, that you can make a move like that. Maybe even a Rashad Bateman, something that we would think is crazy. You can make that move. That's what I personally believe.
Yeah, if that is the case, absolutely. But I'm not even if that works, cool. But if you want to give me a second, especially mid to high second for him right now, I'll gladly trade him.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'll gladly be okay, and I don't have to worry about any of the rest of it. Just take him. He's never had great touchdown production, so he's going to be counting on volume. And I just don't know that he's a talented enough wide receiver to get tons and tons and tons of volume. Because even this past season, he had
103 targets,
77 receptions was a lot. Still didn't break 1,000 yards. Even with that. So not high touchdown production. He's not crazy on the yardage. He's not a jag, but he's not far removed from that.
Oh no,
he's a guy that's going to live. He's going to live in that wide receiver 3 realm, even if he goes to another place and has a slightly better position than he did here, where he was second or third fiddle, I guess. Because AJ Green was there and DeAndre Hopkins and himself. So he was most likely the third option in that offense. So even if he got a bump to be the second option,
and which he was the year before,
you're still looking at wide receiver 3 numbers, most likely. So he's not I don't, like you said, Rich, he's not a championship caliber player. He's a guy that, hey, if you have him on your bench and you got really good players, sure, you might play him on a bye week here and there. But you're on a championship team, but that's the only time you'd ever really use them.
Now, real quick before,
one more thing on Kirk for me. Real quick,
all right,
is it always when I have players too, when I'm it always goes back to the tape. This was a player that a lot of people gave in the community a first-round grade to. And I remember, and I always remember Kirk for this. I remember a lot of these players, like, I just don't get it. Like, I just don't. If you go back and listen to the Dynasty Nerds podcast, old ones, when it comes to Kirk, my breakdowns, like, I just don't get the height. Like, I think I might have even said, like, he just looks like somebody could be like a wide receiver 3 at best. Like, I just don't see what everybody loves about it. Because people loved Christian Kirk coming out.
Sure.
I just didn't get it. So, go on.
All right, so 3 guys that I want to make sure, because I know we're running low on time, I want to make sure we cover. I don't know where they are on your list.
We got about 10 minutes or so.
But Allen Robinson,
absolutely,
Odell Beckham, and Juju. I know none of them scored very high this past season.
And Michael Gallup.
So I wanted to make sure that we
So let's tighten up.
on
How
this.
about we tighten up on some of these guys too? So we'll give them
tighten
like
up. All right, we'll
3
do
minutes.
we'll do rapid fire here. Odell Beckham, wide receiver 55 last year on the whole, obviously. Much different, I think, wide receiver 27 since signing with the Rams in week 10. He played in 14 games, 82 targets, 44 receptions, 537 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He's 29 years old.
I don't count that first week he was with the Rams because then they were on bye. So I say from week 12 to 18, he was wide receiver 22.
Okay.
I just don't count that first week.
Sure. I just... you could pick any point in time if you want to be arbitrary about it. As soon as he went to the Rams,
He's had a good playoffs too.
Yeah, he
He had really good
Absolutely.
playoffs.
Are you counting that?
No. Just weeks 12 through 18 is wide receiver 2. I just that first week game in, like he literally played right away. Remember, it was like he got traded, he played right away. And like, I wonder if they're going to wait him for
He
the
didn't get
bye.
traded. He got cut and then signed.
Cut and signed. Yeah, sorry. So and he played right away. So I just to me that first game I'm kind of using as a wash game. Some of his routes were off on that. They didn't have communication. And they had a bye. So when you go through that, you can have the bye week.
I get it. I'm messing with you, man. Go ahead.
I'm messing back, son.
What a mess.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm buying OBJ.
Yeah, I was very much so. Like earlier in the year, I said sell him for a second. Who gives a crap? I've kind of come.
I do remember that. And I was like,
send me the offer right now. I'll accept it right now. Okay, I did it on the show. I sent the offer on the show.
and then I didn't accept.
He didn't accept.
oh wow, Mr. Too Big for His Britches.
And then went out and won the league. Hurley won the league. From
Yeah,
Dynasty
I was in the
Calculator.
championship, but I lost.
That's what you do. That's
Send
what you
him
get
right
for
now.
That is what I
Be an
get.
Indian giver, secondhand liar.
What side do you like? Odell Beckham for Calvin Ridley?
Oh, Calvin Ridley all day.
Yeah.
He's another huge massive
That's a
buy.
trade that just went down.
I'm saying he's gonna get moved. So Calvin Ridley.
So for the right price and because he's 29 years old, it's not a guy that you're going to be obviously trading for unless he is, you're in a contender situation. So first round draft pick, right? I mean, easy slam dunk for Odell right now.
a late 22 first, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have no problem with
Which guy? They're about similar points in their career. Brandon Cooks or OBJ? Who would you rather have?
I would pay equally the same amount for him. I would rather take OBJ because I think when he signs, he'll be more of a focal point to the offense. I don't know if he re-signs with the Rams, but I think he can definitely go to the Patriots where
He has
really
his
close
own
to.
best interests in mind, Odell, and wherever he signs once he's free, it's going to be to a good situation. I think he's dealt with enough crappy situations here with the Giants and then with the Browns that he's going to know a good situation. He's going to get himself into a situation where he's getting targets.
By the Patriots.
Yeah, or the Rams. He might resign. Who knows? So, I mean, I think he's going to put himself in a situation to succeed going forward. So I'm okay making that call right
And
now.
I think that trade would go through most leagues. I think if somebody offered you for OBJ, they're like, "Ooh, wow, I'm ripping this guy off." Like if I'm a contender late first, like I'm getting a guy. I think he stands as like a wide receiver 2, mid range. Depends where the touchdowns come in. Of course, if he goes to the right situation, maybe in Patriots, he can get the touchdowns. I think I have no problem paying for a wide receiver 2. Kind of falls in that Mike Williams range where like if I could put in my wide receiver 3 role. That's a championship caliber player. He'll probably get a contract that gives you at least 2 more years of him.
He's definitely on a championship team. Your third wide receiver.
Yes.
Yep.
If he's your wide receiver 3.
Guy drafted in the same class, Allen Robinson. He was pretty much consistently like this top end guy and just fell off the face of the earth. We thought he was quarterback proof, and clearly that was not true.
Wide receiver 81 last year. He's 28 years old, 12 games, 66 targets, 38 receptions, 410 yards, and just 1 touchdown. And let's be honest, he was disinterested.
He did not want to be there.
He didn't wanna
Almost
be there.
didn't sign his franchise tag. Like there was rumblings about that. but I really still like Allen Robinson. Like I still think he's a good player, but I'm having a hard time of gauging. Like, Jared, could you look up some trades for Allen Robinson? Because I'm having a hard time like gauging what should his value be, because if it's what he has shown most of his career, you're talking about a guy that has been on a similar plane as not quite, Davante Adams, but a tier just below him. He's, wide receiver. I mean, he was wide receiver, 2 years ago?
8 or 9 or something.
I have it both here for that. So Allen Robinson turns 29 in August.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned he only played 12 games this year, but the last 2 years he played all 16 games, finished as wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 8 the previous year.
Yeah.
So he's a top 10 receivers both years, completely disinterested, like you said, because he wanted to get paid. He felt he deserved to get paid. They franchised him. He was pissed. But he was like, that's $18 million. I'm going to take the $18 million.
Yeah. And I'll play.
And I think Jared's about to read us trades like 2 seconds. I think is what you're going to hear, like a lot of seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the first one. Allen Robinson for 2022 second and a 2023 second.
Yeah.
Allen Robinson for Corey Davis and Michael Gallup.
I feel like before he had this bad year,
Close.
before he had this bad year, he was an undervalued player in the Dynasty community, and people were willing to send him off for a first snap of the fingers. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't flashy. He was never flashy in anything he did. Yeah. But he just produced.
Allen Robinson and Jalen Reagor for Mike Williams.
Yikes.
Okay. That's right. But like Matt said, in 2019 and 2020, he averaged 100 catches, 1,198 yards, and 6.5 touchdowns. To me, I'm buying just because, I'm buying because I like the player, but I love the price point.
It's
a great
I love that price point,
yeah.
and he's going to be a free agent. He has a good place to sign. I would love him in Detroit.
Oh, they're going to say Cleveland.
I would love him in Cleveland.
I wouldn't, as of this point, I don't love any receiver that goes to Cleveland until they show they actually throw to the receiver accurately.
We need to take that jersey down, dude.
You shut your whore mouth.
He's allowed to talk bad about Baker, but you're not. It's kind of like the family thing. Like you can talk crap about your own brother,
I got
but
season
no one else
tickets
can.
too, dude.
Okay, you want a high five later? I got one lined up for you
I'm
right
just
here.
saying, man. Like, hey,
Don't talk bad about my babe. There's a lot of reasons I think Detroit makes sense to me. Is they need a big receiver on the outside opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right.
I think it makes sense they have money. And I think Allen Robinson would be interested in a couple of reasons. One, he's from Detroit. First of all, he's a Detroit native. Mm-hmm. Two, he's so mad at the Bears for signing him, that franchise tag. Mm-hmm. A little vengeance action too. So he gets to play him twice a year and ball out on him. So that's a situation I think kind of makes it a little... That all of a sudden, now we have an interested Allen Robinson. He's getting exactly what he wants. He gets paid, and he gets to play the Bears, and he's playing for his hometown team. Mm-hmm. That would get me most excited.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing him back in Jacksonville too. Go back to where he started.
Everybody keeps saying that too.
I wouldn't mind it.
To be honest, any receiver any of these big free agents that go to Detroit, that go to Jacksonville, that go to the Bears, like
they just have huge needs there.
I'm excited because target. The Raiders. The Raiders are another spot. Like target. Like again, what do I like running backs? Ones that are getting the carries.
Sure.
What receivers do I like? The ones that are getting all the targets, because those are scoring fantasy points. That's what I want. So to me, I'm buying Allen Robinson. I love that price point. I guess 2 seconds. I think I can get done. A 20-22 second, a 23 second.
For me as a contender.
Yeah, and I'll throw in some turd sandwich too. Like what?
Sure.
Hey, I have these turds. Like, hey, you want Christian Kirk in 2 seconds for Allen Robinson? I think some people get really excited. Like their nipples all of a sudden wouldn't be invisible in their shirt, would all of a sudden be visible if I made that trade, and I'd be very happy about that.
People have invisible nipples.
Well, they're just you can't see them.
Just in the shirt, they're
just in the shirt, and then they start poking out, and you can see them. You got to be watching YouTube for this one.
Yeah, those are pointing nips.
The old YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. YouTube.
All right, so moving on. Michael Gallup is the guy that you guys wanted to talk about as well.
What about Juju?
We're getting there. Wide receiver 77 overall. He played in only 9 games, 62 targets, 35 receptions.
I don't know that he's playing this year.
445
he tore
yards.
His ACL week 17.
2 touchdowns. So, yeah, he's a free agent, though. So, him and Cedric Wilson, by the way, both free agents for Dallas. And they're $21 million over the cap, so they're likely somewhere else.
He should be good.
I read somewhere that there was some complications and like...
Ooh, really?
It was looking like more like mid to end of the season.
Oh, so you actually did research.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there was complications.
Well, look at you, all fancy with your
Let me double check.
You double check. He's only 25 years old.
25 years old.
Acrobatic receiver.
Let's say his knee's okay. What's the value there?
Sit the Allen Robinson price, 2 seconds.
Is it 2?
I mean, you can probably give him for a second, but like, so again, it's hard for me because like if I own Michael Gallup, you're like, hey, I'll give you a second for him. I'm like, no, just keep Michael Gallup and see where he signs and hopefully I get the upside there. Like he's been fiending to be the number 2 guy in an offense, and he just can't be. Like he's shown me it. Here's the thing I feel about Gallup. When I see him play, he's never put up like big time numbers. Even this last year, he played through week 17, 35 receptions, 445 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, yeah, Lottie freaking dot. You know, but like I see the potential there with
potential.
Gallup.
So the year before, was it the year before that he almost had 1,000 yards, or he did have 1,000 yards?
The previous year, and then I signed C because we were all like, "Oh, Michael Gallup in for a big year." Hello, C. Lamb at 14.
Yep.
Part of the reason that there was the worry is he just now had the surgery. Like happened,
a lot of swelling, probably.
Yeah,
had to wait for all that to go down.
he got it a month after the injury.
So he just had it. So give him 6, 7.
That's not good though. If it took a whole month for all the swelling and stuff to go down for them.
So you're probably looking at October. He comes in. Again, he's 25. This is Dynasty. So if that creates a dip, I'm getting in on it.
Yeah, this week it looks like he had it.
I buy him for a second. I think he's a good upside buy for a second. That'd be a contender.
I think it's a second. I think that's the price on him, just because of the unknown.
A second round pick.
Pick.
I think that's probably it.
I'm fine with that.
There's a lot of risk there with Gallup.
I would never give a first.
Neither would I.
Yeah, a second.
I think you pay the second one. You hope that you pay the second, hope he could be a mid-range to low-end wide receiver 2. If he turns into wide receiver 3, it's a wash for that second. And if he doesn't, worst case, you lost a second.
All right, moving on. Juju Smith-Schuster, only 25 years old, wide receiver 133 on the year. Only played in 5 games, 28 targets, 15 receptions, 129 yards, and 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, this is a guy who went back to Pittsburgh because nobody really were offering him a contract. So he went back to Pittsburgh to prove himself and just proved he was still just okay. A lot of people are going to get real excited about Juju because he's put up some good fantasy seasons. The problem with me with Juju is when I watch him play, like I don't think he's the best route runner. I don't think he has the best hands. He doesn't.
Nothing jumps off the page.
Nothing jumps off the page for me. I literally think he's an above average Jag. You know what I mean? Like a slightly better.
Would you rather him or Christian Kirk?
Who's
younger? I think they're the same age.
It literally would depend on where they signed. That's it. Honestly, neither. I'm selling. If I have Juju, same thing.
Or Gallup.
I would rather have Gallup than Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah, personally. I mean, the ACL tear kind of like nicks that back a little bit there, but I mean, there's probably tons of other names you could mention. I
think what Juju proved is he has to have a ton of targets in order to be a fantasy reliable person.
He's not going to get paid big this year.
His situation is such that he's not going to go anywhere that he's going to be the guy and get the amount of targets that's going to make him a wide receiver 1. So he's just this middling guy.
He's a Kirk value. As soon as he signs somewhere, I'm selling immediately. So
one other name real quick. It was pretty far down my list, so I almost overlooked it. But
Chark.
That's what I was just going to say. A guy that you really like.
25 years old, wide receiver 135. So only a couple of places below Juju, but played in 4 games. Didn't get off to a great start. Only had 7 receptions on 22 targets, 154 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Fractured his ankle, and that was week 4 that he did it in. So
you want him to go somewhere with a quarterback with a big arm.
Yep.
So
throw him the ball downfield. Yep.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of there's interesting guys in the right situation. Guys like Cedric Wilson, possibly in the right situation.
I think Zay Jones, Laquan Treadwell, guys that like kind of came out of the woodwork this year. You know what I mean?
Treadwell's got to resign with the Jags.
Yeah. I those are the guys that I think are kind of interesting. And James Washington, I think a change of scenery is going to do him well.
Sure. That was a guy we mentioned on one of our buy shows.
Yes.
Even Jamison Crowder in a right situation is shown to be a target hog. So
yeah, he is a guy that needs a ton of targets, similar to Juju Smith-Schuster. If he's not getting 130 targets, he's probably not all that fantasy relevant.
All right, now we're gonna jump into the Nerd Herd Show, talk some quarterbacks and tight ends. You can listen to the Nerd Herd Show very simply by joining the Nerd Herd. I mean, you look at this big sign behind us on the YouTube channel. It says hashtag Nerd Herd. Why? It's a big thing. There's a lot of people in there.
Kind of a big deal.
A lot of big things going on in Nerd Herd. You get so much in the Nerd Herd. You hear me talk about it every single week, and we're still running that promo code because it's still wintertime for only the podcast listeners. Right now, you get 15% off all our memberships right now with that promo code WINTER. The big thing we've been really pumping right now and kind of promoting is the Dynasty Nerds Film Room. I've talked about it every week on the show. As we prepare, as we start to get ready for our rookie breakdowns, over the years, people always ask us, well, where do you watch your tape? Where do you watch your tape? Well, we watch our tape in the Dynasty Nerds Film Room. It's going to be one of the largest all 22 film libraries you can get your hands on. It's literally, if you don't care about our rankings, extra podcasts, the Nerd Score, the Dynasty GM tool, the price point alone, just for the access to that library, is the best bang for your buck out there in the market today. Easily. You can check out our YouTube channel. You check out our Facebook group. We have our Twitter. We put out the video of how to use the film room and what you get to. We have every rookie you can think of. Multiple games, most of them all 22 film. It's going to be your best thing you could do to watch these players and put yourself in the best position to dominate your rookie draft. You get that and so much more at dynastynerds.com. I encourage everybody to go there to see what you're missing. My favorite this time of year is the Dynasty GM tool. I'm looking at my league analyzer. I'm trying to make trades. We mentioned the trade finders in there. The league analyzer is in there. Are you a contender? Are you a reloader? It streamlines all your leagues. You FFPC, Sleeper, MFL, Flea Flicker. All those leagues. So if you have leagues in if you have teams in multiple leagues, you can import them all the GM. They're all in one spot. And there's so many tools on the GM that help you just streamline your leagues. It's so easy. Again, it's so we made the GM we made the GM for Dynasty players that like to play in multiple leagues to make everything super easy for you. And if you're in a league and you're like, man, I really want to trade for a receiver. I have no receivers, but I got a lot of running backs. Instead of going through every team and clicking on every team to see who has what, and then by the time you get to the 11th team, you forgot what team one had, all you do is go to the league analyzer, click on the league. It's going to show you who has the strongest receivers and who has the weakest running backs. Those are your trade targets. You click on that, it's going to tell you all their players. All of a sudden, you click on that, you double tap, it takes you right to the trade calculator. What's different about our trade calculator? Most trade calculators, you got to look up the players, and put them in there. Not our trade calculator. It automatically imports your players. So you just click on what team you want to pick, and all their players and assets, and by assets I mean picks, are right there. So it makes everything for you as a Dynasty player easier. We uploaded the GM almost 2 years ago. If you saw the GM from when we first uploaded it to now, it's night and day. And the one promise we always make you here at Dynasty Nerds is we're always looking to improve.
Yes.
The one thing we do when you use that promo code WINTER and get that 15% off and become a Nerd Herd member is we look at that as an investment not only into yourself and your Dynasty team, but into the community. And we're going to use that membership to expand on these tools and what we have to offer. We're constantly growing and constantly bringing new, innovative tools and options to make you the best overall Dynasty player. Our goal is to be a one-stop shop for all your Dynasty needs. And we're constantly looking how to do that. And you being a Nerd Herd member not only gives you all those great tools, but it helps us pay our developers to do just that. Yep. We're constantly trying to make that better for you. Get out there, check it out. Right now, the promo code WINTER, we have those monthly options. You can literally go in there for $7 and be in there for a month and see everything we have to offer and know that what I'm saying is the truth. Check it out, dynastynerds.com today. Join the Nerd Herd. It'll be the best Dynasty decision you ever made. And here our next episode.
I heard you describing searching through all your leagues and trying to figure out who was, strong at what positions. And I forgot how arduous that was because we've been using this tool for like two years now that I forgot how terrible that is to do all that kind of stuff.
And this is a good time to use it because you're like, okay, season's over, time to make some trades. Damn, my tight ends suck. Let me go in here.
Yep.
Oh, man. Oh, this person, I need some draft picks. Oh, this person has tons of draft picks. Yep. He doesn't have any running backs. Let me go make a move. It really does. The GM's so fun to use. Check it out. Promo code WINTER. Save 15%. We'll be back next week.
Adios.